Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat. In this podcast, we dive deep into the transformative power of storytelling. I firmly believe that stories have the magical ability to heal, inspire, and connect us. That's why I'm here to bring you the incredible stories of women who have journeyed through life's ups and downs and emerged as their most authentic selves. We'll explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and the courage it takes to embrace change. It's a space where authenticity shines, where the messy and the beautiful moments of life come together to create something truly extraordinary. So, brilliant listeners, get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, a burst of inspiration, and a whole lot of love. Transforming 45 is not just a podcast, it's a movement, a celebration of incredible humans who light up the world. I'm so grateful you are here, and I can't wait to embark on this transformative journey with you. Let's dive in and start transforming together. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. I am really excited to introduce you to this week's guest, Eva Vennari. She is the founder of the Elevate Institute, a cutting edge, true holistic provider. She's a spirit alchemist who removes blocks to longevity and heals chronic illness. And I want to say, we met last week. We had a great conversation. And one of the things that really struck me just from that conversation was just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And I cannot wait to get into this with you and how that shows itself, like always and particularly at midlife. So welcome to the show, Eva. I'm so glad you're here today.
Yeah, glad to be here, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Eva, we know a little bit about you, but who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
An enigma that became from
Yeah.
what I call and consider being a hot mess. Yeah, it was a case of necessity because I had become so chronically ill from a myriad of problems that everywhere I turned, I could not find answers unless it involved drugs. Let's prescribe you this drug, that drug. And when I asked the question, this was a defining moment. I asked one of my 10 doctors the question, what's going to happen when I take this drug? What's the future look like for me? And the answer was enlightening. They know. And what I mean is that what we consider traditional medicine, so modern medicine, scientifically based AMA medicine. He said, well, most people end up on multiples of prescription drugs as a result of the side effects. And within a few short years, they end up on Social Security disability and they become a ward of the state. And I said, that is not for me. And I ripped up all of the prescriptions and I moved on. So that was the beginning.
That's yeah. It's just because there are so many questions that I want to ask you. I'm trying to decide which one do I want to ask first. And I think the question I want to ask first is this, and that is, what gave you the confidence to trust in what your intuition was telling you? Because we are so deeply conditioned to believe that what comes to us from medical doctors is, I'm going to use the word gospel because I can't think of another word that's like that, quite that dogmatic, right? So what is it that gave you the confidence to listen to your intuition and know maybe perhaps there's another way?
It was the years of simply not having relief. So it was a snowball effect. So you're being me. I was continually gaslit and told it's all in your head. Your numbers on your tests look normal. They're within range. And you want to believe them. I did. I wanted to believe them. But let's call it what it is, abuse of power was so unhelpful in my ability to take care of family. It felt like an additional weight being placed on me every single time. And it made it so difficult. It's like whoever you're looking to for help, they hand you a shovel and they say, dig a hole. And when you're done digging the hole, yeah, they push you in and then jump on your back and say, now dig your way out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it felt. And it seemed like a hopeless endeavor. So the confidence came from fear that what they were now telling me was true. You're going to end up let me give some frame of reference here. I was diagnosed at the age of 20 with autoimmune disorder, infertility. I had been exposed. My immune system was so low that they found all these different viruses that they wanted to claim, well, this is what's the cause of your chronic fatigue. So at 20, they told me that I had all of these viruses and the autoimmune disorder, but they wouldn't commit to well, you're tired all the time, so you must have chronic fatigue. They didn't officially diagnose me until 10 years later.
Right.
And this is after I went through perimenopause at the age of 28. A few years later, I found myself in the care of a doctor for osteopathic care. He said to me, you're going to end up in a wheelchair by the age of 35 because your bones are just, you've got arthritis, you have hypothyroidism, chronic fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, depression, fibromyalgia, itchy skin, heart palpitations, short-term memory loss, IBS. That's only 10 things that I've listed.
Yeah.
There were 20 more. Why am I going into perimenopause at the age of 28?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question because I'm sure people listening were like, what? But medical perimenopause is something that happens, right? And that's another reason why this conversation is so important, to look at across the spectrum of generations, for all of us to be empowered and know about what happens in our bodies so that we can be aware of these things, right? So when our body only has so much energy, right, to be able to support all of the miraculous jobs that it does every day. And it's a ton, right? Our body is making everything function in our bodies. And then there is the job of interacting with everything else outside of itself. So it only has so much energy. And when it has to pour that into other places, systems start to shut down. Right. So is that what was happening for you that started early menopause for you?
That's a really good way to describe what I call the quantum energy quotient. That's my coined phrase. This is all around you have enough energy to pump the heart, to breathe, to maybe eat and digest your food, open your eyeballs, see things, but you don't have energy to do other things like process, be present, feel more than the pain. It's amazing. So it's not just the physical energy. There's also that emotional space to process things. There's also the spiritual. Had I be present, that could be spiritual blockages that you don't know about, and it's a combined effort. So that's why I call it quantum. We don't know where some of the blocks are coming from. Yes, they started out as physical because that's how the body gets your attention. Hey, something's wrong.
Yes.
I think that's a really good summation of the result of not providing your body what it needs as it needs it so that it can heal itself is exactly how I experienced my body, my life.
Yeah. And that, I think, is something that deserves so much airtime. And like you said, it shows itself in lots of different ways, right? Like I was having this conversation with my husband on the weekend. We were away, just the two of us. And so that let us like really get into some conversation. And he said to me, he's like, Lisa, I feel bad that I didn't notice how much you had disappeared. And my response was like, oh God, like, don't feel bad about that because I didn't notice either. But it's that energetic part of when I needed all of the energy in my world to run my basic systems, heart, breath, vision, like all those things that you said.
Yeah.
Every other piece of energy that I had was going into being able to function in my job every day.
Yes.
And I had nothing left to actually be me, right? To be present, to be in the world, to actually be in my body. My body was functioning, but I was gone. I was no longer in it because there wasn't energy for that. And I don't think that that connection gets made often. And people experience illnesses, right? Like that's the body, it's the body's last ditch effort. But if we can catch folks before they get to that space, what's the difference that you see in terms of healing?
100% of the time, it is a lack of self-love. We have been conditioned by society to think that our sacrifice of our own desires and needs is somehow deserving of a gold star and that we're going to be rewarded in an afterlife. And no is my answer. Just no. Period. No. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, life is meant to be enjoyed and enjoy now. And sacrificing your own needs means that you won't be around to help anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that piece is critical. So I want to bring this back around to midlife in a second, but I also want to get down to, so what was it for you? You probably just said it, but that was underneath all of those diagnoses. And what was the process for you to start reclaiming yourself and your health?
I'm half Italian, half Dutch, and that's a lot of stubborn. So I just applied it in a way that was useful to me, and it became my greatest gift because my stubborn was I don't want to end up on medications. Now, here's behind that, which was I watched my ex-husband. So we had two different ways to go. One was the healthy way, and that's what I did. I was looking for natural health. He looked to the doctors and wanted to get prescribed medications to fix it now for me. And what happened was, after 12 years of divorce, he was at the age of 45. He was on 17 different medications. He died in the care of doctors and nurses in a hospital. He had a massive heart attack and could not be revived. And it was that phone call from the person who informed me of what happened. I felt that spiritual tap on the shoulder. You can't just do this work for yourself now. You have to do it and let people know, the masses, let them know they have an option. And that's an uphill battle because, like you just stated, we're conditioned to believe that what the doctor says is gospel. More stubbornness has to be applied from my side to say, no, there are better ways, but you really have to be ready for that. You have to hit the rock bottom of, okay, these people don't know exactly everything. They're really good. So what did it for me was this understanding at the next level. Once I realized I needed to be that person to bring this message, was understanding how to use doctors. So here's my framework. If it's on fire or bleeding, you go to the doctor. Trauma care, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you are experiencing symptoms that are chronic, they cannot help you.
Yeah.
So this requires something more. It requires a holistic health practitioner like myself.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really necessary framework to start thinking through, is that Western medicine, the Western medical model, is one piece of a much larger circle of care, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, like you said, if it is emergent, if it is bleeding, when I have these conversations, I always worry a little bit that I'm saying, like, don't ever. And I have to be grateful for the Western system in that I would be dead right now because I had to have an emergency C-section.
Me too.
And I often think, right, like if I had been born 100 years earlier, I would not have survived, nor would have my child. So it is not a binary conversation, right? It is not either or. This is one tool that we use. in a much broader generalization and understanding of what care actually is.
Not only care, but self-care, because, I had that too. I spent 17 hours in labor, and it wasn't until and they had to do an emergency C-section because the child was under duress. And of course, I wasn't enjoying it either. but but the
Yeah.
process of
Yeah.
understanding, after I became certified in mineral balancing work, it was very clear to me that the body was so nutrient deficient in
Mm.
certain things. And I discovered along the way that I was very copper toxic. And by the way, most people are. And the zinc,
Mm.
then there's a relationship in minerals there that determine how much energy you have. Well, zinc is what allows our skin and our cells to be pliable. What do you have to be in order
Oh,
to
yeah.
give birth? Pliable. The whole
Pliable.
area has to open up. So being copper toxic and zinc insufficient, I was too unable, physically unable to dilate to the degree to let the child out. And this is
Mhm.
what's created the issue. So, like, well, wouldn't these issues with needing C-section happen earlier in our history? It has been, but it's worse now because all of our food is so minerally deficient. It's how we have to grow food in order to feed the masses. We've got 8 billion people on the planet. And while the States is not feeding everybody, it's feeding a lot of people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true. And it's another conversation that comes up in the so we were talking about it at birth, right at that end.
Yep. Yep.
And so we, come through the midlife and now we're at menopause. And it's a conversation that I've had with a few folks around menopause is presenting itself differently now than it has in our history. And that it is more intense at this point in time than it ever has been previously. And that I think also is connected to what you're talking about. Can
It
you
is.
speak to that a little bit?
Directly. So when it comes to, let me back up to when I was 28 and went through perimenopause. I understood, and personally, what a woman who complained about it in, let's call it standard normal time frame, like in the late 40s to mid 50s, you would start this perimenopausal journey. The hot flashes were more than real; they were all the time. Like the refrigerator and I became really good friends,
Mm.
and the pain and the discomfort of going through PMS for 3 months at a time until my cycle finally showed up, and my body decided to regulate, was very difficult. So it's almost like the first time, because I'm now 50 and I'm just starting that perimenopausal journey for the second time. And the
Mhm.
difference between 28, the symptoms are like traversing a huge mountain range at 28, whereas
Mhm.
now it's just a little boop, boop, speed bump in experience. I'm like, oh, that's because I'm going through perimenopause. Got it. But it's not
Mhm.
ever present on the mind. So the difference for me is being minerally sound, being less full of toxic heavy metals. We do not live in a bubble, and nor can we, because we need our immune system to work. But the
Yeah.
immune system can't work because the toxins are there. So when it comes to minerals, like the minerally soundness of the body, it does all of that. It creates the body in its ideal state so that we can be more pliable, so that the hormones can be created, so that the bloodstream can take those hormones, the great communicator of the body, to each of the new cells. And then we create new, better quality cells because we're more nutrient dense with our food supply. So all of these things, they come together, as a nice, beautiful blend to make the process much easier. And my own experience proves that.
Mhm.
Pre mineral balancing, nightmare.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. And I want to make sure we come back to mineral balancing because this is a conversation that I have very little experience in. So I think it's
Yes.
going to be really important. And I also want to sort of also tie us back to that first part of our conversation around what we have energy for, right? And the approach that I take to perimenopause and menopause is that it's not a disease.
Oh,
It is not the thing. What the symptoms that you're experiencing are messages from your body.
yes.
Yes, it is your body's way of saying, "Hey, things are changing in here." And we need to do things differently to maintain our daily systems so that we can have the health span that you want to have. And when we are emotionally, physically, so all of the pieces that you're talking about that I want to make sure we get back to, but also emotionally and cognitively, when our energy stores are like in the basement, it's yet another challenge, right, to moving through this period.
Yeah, just to show up for yourself becomes a huge project. You know, when you have conditions in your body, your body's communicating with you so strongly that all you can do is tunnel vision in that idea of
Yeah.
I'm in pain. You don't have the energy to look up and go, oh, there's my spouse, I should probably communicate with them. That's not even in question. We're still here. We're
Yeah.
still concentrating on I don't feel good. Yeah. There
Yeah.
was a point in time when I
Yeah.
was very tired. I remember being on the couch late at night, lying down, and my little girls toddlered over to me. They're now 27 and 26, but at the time I was so depleted, and they were just itty bitties, not even in school yet. Mommy, come tuck us in bed. And I had to decline them. I said, I am sorry. I am so tired. I cannot get up from where I am. Give me a hug and kiss from here, and I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not allowing us to show up in the ways that we want to, right? Like in a sort of continuation of that story, in my Facebook memories today popped up this, and my 2020 memories have this real poignancy, especially in this time, because we're like a month out from something that was going to change everything and we didn't even know it. Like in my world anyway, I had not a clue. And in my world, I also was going through some really challenging times professionally. We were striking. There are continue to be huge issues in education. We were striking for those issues. I was a central provider of professional development. So I didn't have a place to work anymore. The place that I had worked was like, sorry, you guys are striking. You can't work here anymore. And so it was a hot, like you said earlier, it was a real hot mess. So the story is of me gathering up all of my possessions, because I'm now essentially like living and working out of my car when I'm not striking. And so I'm gathering up all of my things and groceries and all the other mom stuff, and my arms are full, and I walk through the door into my laundry room and a trip and almost fall directly on my face because I can't catch myself because my arms are full because my kids' shoes are just splayed out all over the place. So I immediately start yelling. And my oldest son came downstairs and he was like, oh, Mom, you just walk through the door. You're yelling at us. You don't even see any of the good things. And in that moment, because I was so depleted, I just lost my fucking mind. Like I like fully unloaded. I remember saying to him, yes, I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm a bitch right now. Like, just give me some space. And that's not necessarily like, that's not how I would normally show up, but it's a really good example of what happens to our behavioral state when we are in those places of deep depletion.
Yeah, the filter comes off, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's just not there.
It doesn't work for the workplace, it doesn't work for your friends, it doesn't work for your partner, and it doesn't work for your kids,
Yes.
and it doesn't work for your kids' administrative staff at school. Woo!
I know. They get the best and the worst of humanity.
I'm laughing because I've been there. I have been there. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and I've used it as a learning experience for my kiddo. So after everything was calm, we were able to have that conversation of like, hey, did you, like, when you saw me, what did you notice? And he, being a teenage boy, was like, I don't know. Like, right. So my arms were full of things. I had just had a really hard day. I hear what you are saying. And when someone is giving you all of these cues about where they're at, how might we respond in a different way? Right? Because there are multiple there are multiple perspectives on that kind of interaction that requires like thoughtful consideration from the person who is the most rational in that situation. Right?
Because it can't always be us.
No, it cannot always be us. So, getting back to mineralization in the body. So, tell me more. Tell me everything about that. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, right away, the first thing that I have to reverse for people is the idea that the symptoms are the problems. Yeah. We
Yeah.
need to stop being a hunter and hunting down and trying to kill each of our symptoms. There's nothing wrong with subduing the pain with pain medication for a short while you are correcting the underlying condition. But here's the really cool thing about mineral balancing. You don't need a diagnosis and you don't need to know what the body's working on. You just put yourself into a place where you're continually healing.
Right.
And I call that an apple a day technology. This is just what are the things we need to do? Everybody says, oh, apple a day is the idea. Well, let's break that down. And so I'm teaching the basics and I'll get it to you here. It's really simple. It's, so we have hydrate. And we want to make that complicated, but it's really simple. Drink water, non-fancy, not the alkaline waters, not the distilled waters, not be purified through reverse osmosis. We're talking like spring mountain water. Drink water. And then rest throughout the day between your appointments so that the momentum of stress is managed. And then you can 3, sleep. Because sleep is where rejuvenation happens. And a lot of our mental like anxiety can be corrected if we are processing all of our memories from the previous day. And that also happens in sleep. So there's that. And then 4, eat whole foods, not meal replacements, not power bars, not like eat food, chew your food. Until you can't taste the flavor anymore and then swallow it. That's the key. Eat slowly, right? And then number 5 is supplement, because back to the same point that our food is so minerally deficient. It's no longer a question of if we should supplement. It's with what, how much, and what kind. And that's the solve that I provide. It's making it very simple with modern testing, not blood testing. It's modern testing of, hair. I use hair. So when we find out how the body is processing what we're putting into it, and we're talking about what we breathe, what we eat, what we drink, whatever sits against our skin and doesn't rinse out in the wash, it all goes into the body. There's no doorman that says, hey, you're a toxin, you stay out. It's a rave, man. It's a big party. It all comes in. The body makes more you. And then whatever it has the energy to make more you with, and as soon as that energy runs out, it says, well, whatever's left over, we're going to store it in body tissues and parts and pieces and organs and between fat and whoever else where it goes, which is a lot of places to go. The leftovers get sent into the soft tissue, which is your hair and your nails. And that's why we're testing the hair. We want to see what right now do you need in your body to help keep you in that ongoing healing state. I call that the healing cascades. So if you're doing the apple a day and if you stay in the healing cascades, then longevity is a moot point. It'll happen unless something else like a tragic car accident or something gets in the way. Right. So if you're whatever you're in charge of, you get to choose. And we're supposed to vote with our wallet. In this case, it's the keep your body alive by keeping your mind the wallet, if you will. Be in charge. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. One, I think really bears coming back to, and that is there's so much pressure on us for what we like actually put in our mouths and put in our bodies.
Yeah.
And there is so much ambient chemistry all around us that we really don't think about and how that is impacting us. And those are things we don't have choice over in some cases, right? The air
Yeah.
we breathe, that's a really good one. We don't have choice over what is in that air when we are outside of our homes. Like, we can do as much as we can inside of our homes to purify as much as possible.
And often that's the
But
most toxic air is in our home.
yes. And so what are some
Yeah.
of the factors of toxic air in our homes?
Well, the variation of dates when a home was built, the construction methods, like the 1970s was full of sick building methods, which meant the building did not breathe. You need fresh air, right? You can't have your air filters, filtering and trapping air that you've been breathing already. You got to open doors, air it out. Let's air out the house. Yeah, there's real reason to do that. But the longer you stay in a place where you're cooking, where you're eating, where you're sleeping, where you're going poo, all these things that are, exploding into the air,
Mm-hmm.
the more we need to be aware of it. So this is where the HEPA filters come into play, especially if you have cats. It's like you can maintain that as best you can, but you can't force yourself to live in a bubble. So what is the protection? The protection is the minerals in your body. Become minerally fortified, because when you do, whatever toxins come into your body goes, oh, I don't have room for that. That shit's out. Find the
Yeah.
exit route, and your body does. It knows where to send it. It goes through the lymphatic system. It goes out from the blood through the kidneys to the liver. It goes out everywhere where it needs to go. It's going, and this is why modality care is so important. You need to make sure you're doing sauna therapy, or you're doing foot reflexology, or something to help keep the toxins moving. Because if you're doing this, the healing cascades, your body is getting rid of toxins, and you want to keep those pathways open. And so the whole process is you being involved with your body. It's not a Ron Popeil set it and forget it rotisserie machine. This is an ongoing thinking. I'm present, and half the battle is knowing what to do and what's going on with your body. And that's another thing. That's the main thing that I saw, is really, how do I communicate with my body, and how is my body communicating with me? Understanding that language and knowing what to do about it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And I can speak to my own process and something that I really notice. So one of the ways I really keep toxins moving through my body is like movement, right?
Yeah.
If that's something another thing we don't often think about, that when we are moving, we are actually moving and processing things through our body. And so for me, a good workout in the morning where I really sweat, if I feel so much better after I have had that experience. And on the days where I don't, I can feel the difference in the chemistry in my body.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the myths is sweat is sweat. And there's a difference between sweat while you are exercising and sweat while you are at rest in, say, a sauna session. So the only time that the body is actually doing
Yes.
a healing or detoxing is when we are at that rest state and doing work in sauna therapy or something like that. And so exercise while you're getting rid of that the saline solution, right? The body's just sweating sweat. It's different, but it's also useful, because you need that circulation support for the blood to deliver those minerals, to deliver the hormones. It's both. You need both, just like we need doctors and we need holistic care. It's the same.
Yes. Yeah. And the rest, I will be fully honest and transparent. The rest part is hard for me. And as I am moving into perimenopause and menopause, I am noticing that I overtrain.
Yeah, you can.
And it
Yeah.
is, yes. And it is causing exhaustion. It's causing pain. It's causing all of these things. And I have to recondition my brain, because I love to move for lots of reasons, but I can't pretend that one of them isn't physical. Like the way I look. That's just the truth. And I have to recondition myself to get into that space but now I'm actually harming myself. So, providing time for rest and gentle movement is even more important in this phase than the like intense work that I do. Like that is also necessary, but like you said, duality, right? Both parts are really, really important and necessary. And so that's where my work is right now, is the like, this is also giving to yourself, sister, cool it.
Yeah, there is. I tell people, if you have the energy to do like pedal to the metal, press hard, give it all you got session in a workout, do it. But once you understand your body is reaching out to you with the message that says, I have started a healing reaction and I need support from you. That's something you learn. And so there's 4 stages of healing and how that works. So once you know you're in a stage other than number 1, which is gathering energy for the next healing, you want to work out at 70 percentile. So still work out, but just be aware that as soon as you dip in your to your essential, your quantum essential energy quotient, then you're now stealing from the body's ability to heal and actually putting a pause on any healing that is trying to do. So you may end up going, well, I'm exercising, I'm eating right, I'm drinking enough water. Why am I not feeling better? Because you're going through a healing that needs support. And take that off, the extra stress, and then watch how it completes the cycle, because your body will not complete a healing cycle, or it will not start a healing cycle unless it has 100% of the energy it needs to complete it. And you're the only thing that's going to get in its way.
Yes. Yeah, that's really important. And in this time, so like again, going into the perimenopause, menopause world, your body is using additional energy to figure out what's going on as our estrogen and progesterone fluctuate, right? That is the reason why including more rest time and kindness to ourselves is so important, because our energy is heading in another physical direction.
Yeah, and we have different needs. As we age, the body needs less of the cardio and more of the mobility and strengthening exercises.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Strengthening is really key.
Yeah.
So, as we're just sort of wrapping up here, one of the things I'm wondering is, do you see trends? Like, is there a particular mineral deficiency that people are missing, or is it really specific to each individual, or is it both things?
I have clients from Peru to Dubai, and it doesn't matter
Okay.
where a person has been spending the time with their body in a physical location. We all have a problem with the copper toxicity. Very rarely do I find somebody who hasn't, who doesn't have that. And it's not about going and doing chelation therapy. Okay, if you're tempted to go and get an IV with chelation therapy or take the pills that do it, let me just tell you, you're doing the same thing as letting your car run around on its rims. And let me explain that. So if you're a car, if your body's a car and you pop a tire, what do? We put a spare tire on it. Well, that's what the toxin is doing. It's the spare tire in the body. It's holding space until we can get the preferred mineral in there. And then the body goes, I prefer this mineral. You're out. New one's in. The body gets rid of it. That's the process. So be gentle with your body. If you want to ruin its internal organs, do chelation. If you want to do it gently in its own time, then use displacement. And that's what mineral balancing does. So copper toxicity is a huge issue. It doesn't mean eat less copper, so much so. It means we need a whole, whatever it is that your hair test results show that your body needs to correct that metabolism layer. And then we just work our way back over time until we become a solid fortified being. And then the body does what it works in its most ideal state. This is when we're minerally fortified. Guess what? We don't have to pass out to go to sleep.
Yeah.
We get tired and we're like, oh, it's the end of the day, and we fall asleep. Right? The mind works properly so that it's not ruminating over all of the mistakes of the day and the wishes that we could have done it better. No, we didn't do that. And no, the mind shuts and it goes to sleep, and then you remember your dreams and you wake up in the morning refreshed, and now you're ready for the next day. And energy comes and goes as it's supposed to. It's not, we have this misconception. Energy is supposed to be this, walls to the balls all the time. And we want that charge. No, we have natural rhythms to pay attention to. And that's the ideal. And that's just not the normal. So
Yeah, that is a really important message. Is that, yes, there are rhythms and there are cycles. And because you're in a part of your cycle where you're feeling like you need rest, it doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong. It means you need to pay attention and actually rest, right?
yes.
Respond to the messages that our body is sending us.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this, Eva. This was a really great conversation full of really important information. And I will make sure all of Eva's contact information is in the show notes. So if you have more questions or things you want to learn from Eva, or if you want to work with her, all of the information will be there. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
So glad to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey today. Your support means the world to me. If you resonated with our conversations and want to uplift the Transforming 45 community, here's what you can do. 1, subscribe and share. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value here, share it with your friends, family, and anyone seeking inspiration. 2, leave a review. On whatever platform you are listening on, your words can make a significant impact and help others find their way to these transformative stories. 3, connect. Join the conversation on my social media platforms. Follow me at lboat for updates, behind the scenes, and more heart-centered content. And 4, guest recommendations. If you know someone whose story could inspire someone else, reach out and let me know. I love connecting with diverse voices that carry the power to transform lives. Remember, it is your support that is the magic in my mission. Together, we can create a community of empowerment, growth, and healing. Thank you for being part of the Transforming 45 family. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing your journey.